let's jump in. By the looks of it, some people are having difficulty getting in, but we'll give them a chance. We've got 2 hours, they'll be able to work it out in 2 hours. Anyway, so we'll jump in. Here we have our .2 software. We've got nothing patched. We could have loaded a demo show file, but we're going to load straight into the blank show file, and we're going to patch some stuff. So the good thing about .2 is that it's going to give you tips on everything you do. So the first thing it's done is when we've opened a show file, the first thing it's done is gone, your show file is empty. You need to add some fixtures to your show before you can start programming on the console. And it tells us to press setup and then fixture schedule. So we press setup, fixture schedule, and then we want to add some fixtures. Now the first thing it wants to do is add, obviously, dimmers. It's going to give us a couple of other options before we start diving in and going through the fixture library. So we're going to patch some dimmers. We're going to patch the standard 12 dimmers. We're going to give them the ID of 1. Now, one thing for MA2 users is there is no such thing as a channel number anymore. The only number there is now is the fixture ID. So whether it's a channel or a fixture, everything's got the same number now. So they start on ID 1, they'll be dimmer 1, and our patch is 1.1. So we're going to go OK. We want to patch 12 of those, and we'll patch them. And it's added those in, and on our little screen here we can see that 13 through 512 is still free on Universe 1, and so on through the other 8 universes. Let's add some more fixtures. Let's add some RGB car pans. We're going to add 4 of them. We're going to have their IDs as 101, and we're just going to make them RGB par. Now if we end any of our fixture numbering with a number, it'll automatically number the rest of them. So when we click OK, we're going to see when we scroll down that they're RGB 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, I was about to say, for anyone who can't see the live stream, maybe refresh the page, as occasionally when it goes from the counter to the live stream it doesn't come across. So if someone would be lovely enough to type that into the chat, maybe just ask them to refresh their page or their website, they'll be able to view it. Anyway, continuing on, we're going to dive in, we're going to patch some Mac 250s. So instead of choosing from our types, we click select other, and we could go through the list and locate Martin, or if you're on a console, you can use the wheels to go down and find Martin 250. Or you can just type like we're about to do here. So I'm going to go Martin, whoops, not Martin, Martin 250, and we want ontours, and we've got our 2 modes selected here. On our little screen here, we've got what those channels do. We're going to click OK because we'll have them in extended mode. We're going to take 4 of them. Their IDs will be 251, just because you could always defaultly leave your IDs and just have them sequential, but I like to know that my first 250 is 251, my second one would be 252, and if I've got like Mac 700, 701. That numbering's great up until you have more than 100 of them. Then it sort of goes to hell. Or if you've got Mac 301s and Robe 300s, becomes a little more difficult. Anyway, oi, yellow. Oh. All that talking, I didn't even notice that I hadn't clicked OK. Anyway, we want 4 of them, 251, Mac 250E1 is fine, that patch is fine, but if it wasn't, we can select the DMX address, which is really nice, because now we can see that if we tried to patch it over the... Ooh, that didn't work at all. We patch it over the top of stuff, they become red. So we'd have to actually scroll down and see that the next one available is 25. And then we click OK. So there's our 250s, 251, 252, 253, 254. And we click done, and it's going, you are leaving, would you like to save? And when we click apply changes, if you've got anything in the network, it's going to push that information across. So if we had a 3D session or another console, this is when the information gets pushed across. Now that we've done that, we can see some intensities, some RGBs, and our ontours here. Now, the first thing we're going to now do is we've got .2 PC running, and we're going to connect that up. So if we click on setup and we go to sessions, here we can see that it sees nothing. We can see one on PC session and one, we can't see a 3D session. Interesting. That's okay. So the first thing we want to do is start a new or join an existing session. We want to start a new session, and the the .2 range can support up to 4 different sessions. So if you've got different rooms running on the same network, you can have up to 4 sessions running on the same network. We want to start session number 1, and then we want to now add our 3D software in, and we'll wait a couple of seconds and we'll see that that's come across, and I don't think I need to add myself to it, but I've done that anyway. We're added. Now, if we're on a console or we had a node, we could see that if we go network protocols, we can enable ArtNet. But we can't because I don't have any .2 hardware anymore. I did have a lovely .2 desk, which a review is coming out for tomorrow. I think that's all due for release. But we had to send it back to Show Technology, which is the Australian distributor. They were very, very nice to send it out to us and let us have a play with it for 24 hours. It's such a nice console. But the on-PC for this isn't actually too bad. So now we've got the systems talking, we'll do a bit of arranging of the fixtures. So over here, we're going to select our dimmers. We're going to go up, and we're going to go, I missed one. Go to combine view for a sec. And we're going to select all our dimmers, and I can click through them like this, or I can go 1 through 12, select them all. I'm going to orbit a bit. Ooh, hello. And I'm going to grab that blue, yellow, that blue icon, and switch it to the back. I appear to have somehow, I'm sideways. Oh, there we go, that's better. And we're just going to position these. So there is an align command. So with them selected, we can go align value 4, and I'm only going to select the first 6. I'll select the back 6 for the moment. And we're going to click apply, and it's not going to space. Well, that's because I'm utterly stupid. So there's some of them. I don't know where the rest have gone. Let's just see what we've got there. We've got, let's clear for a sec, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So it just hasn't aligned them properly. So we'll put 10 out there. $11 there. And 12. And then we'll just grab all of them and drag them back to the center. Focus them very roughly, make sure that they actually work, which they do. And then we'll grab our first 6. It's a bit slow going at the beginning, it always is. And we're going to bring them to the front. And we're going to hopefully run our align command and it's going to work. But I have a feeling if I tell it 6, it might actually do it properly. No, it still only does 3. It must be something I'm doing wrong. Ah, there we go. It's better. And we'll bring those up. And we'll focus them as well. Do this lovely center spot. Now, just like MA2, the .pc software stores all this information, and it'll also store any artifacts. So if you put in like a bit of staging, it's actually contained in your show file. Next thing, we're going to grab our 4 RGBs. And we're going to pull them up. Whoops. Going to grab those 4 RGBs again. Grab the little green arrow, drag them up. And we'll see that they don't have a beam. Now, Act Lighting said that in their video that you need to change the type of RGB fixture you're using so it actually has a beam. There is, of course, a cheat, which is just using one of the old other models. So we could go for something like a ball or a light frame, but we're just going to go for a par. Now, if you do require an LED parcan that works properly, Act Lighting apparently do have a file that works, and you can go with them, or you can get it off MA, I believe, as well. Once again, our training resources are fantastic, but the training resources available in your local country from your local dealer, and even if that is Act Lighting, will always be better because they know the local market. They can also give you pricing and they can arrange training packages for you, which is good. I've been dealing with MA products for just over 5 years now, and having a dealer to deal with has been one of the best things ever, because I'm pretty much the technical sales representative at Show Technology. There's at least two of them that I speak to on occasion are fantastic, because you can call them. I never have had to call them after business hours, but every time I've called them, especially in crisis, going, this isn't working, how do I do this? They've been really fantastic. So always try to go through your MA dealer. I know as a child your parents probably told you to stay away from dealers, but dealers are good when we're talking about MA products. Or you can go directly to MA themselves. They've got a lovely little forum, the .2 forum, which I'll provide a link for later, that is a fountain of information, and if you've got any ideas of what you want to see in the program, that's probably the best way to talk to them. Or if you spot any bugs, like if you go into your current version of the software 1.1, under .2 wings, it's instead of saying extend your console, it says extent. You know, you pick up on little things, and they're always happy to help and always happy to serve your needs. Now we've got everything set. The first thing, if you've started up your console, is you've got all these little wing pages and stuff, and it's all in one interface now, which is nice. Every screen size is slightly different to get the way that I wanted to do it, which is 2 screens, which is what you can see in your screen up the top there. I had to click on a little prompt and I had to set my scaling. I told it that I wanted 2 displays and display with keys, and I've scaled mine to 111 just because that's what's comfortable for me, but you can do other things. You know, you can have all 4 spaced out if you want to, but 2 works really well for me because I can see everything I want. Also, 2 is the amount of screens that the core console comes with. Yes, it is. So let's program some stuff. So now we've done with our arrangement, we'll come out of arrangement mode and we'll drop our point light color. And we'll center our screen a bit better. So we'll run through everything. If I go 1 through 6, please add at. You've got those, which will focus just a bit better on that z-axis point. And then if we go 7 through 12, please. We've got those. Yeah. 7 through 12. Cool, lovely. Our LEDs 101 through 104. And they work perfectly. And then our movers 251 through 254. And there they are. They're slightly off center. There we go. That's a bit better. So, now we need to do a bit of paletting. Before we program anything, I would always palette things very heavily. Palettes are lovely. Storing hard values into anything is just bad. Because if you need to update it later, it becomes a pain in the ass. So, we should always teach good things. So, we'll start with some color presets. So we're going to select everything that possibly could color. Actually, we'll create groups first. So, .2 on PC gives you this nice little simple window that shows you what your fixture types are, and you can select them just like this quite easily. But being someone who's come from an MA background, I like having groups. So I'll grab all my 250s, I'll store, go to a group. That's going to prompt me to label the object. It's going to give it a name already, which is 250E. Because I only got one type of 250s, I'm just going to go 250s. And then I'm going to select my LEDs. Clearing first, so they're not in my selection. I'm going to go store. And it's once again going to give it a name of what fixture type it is. I just want to go lead par. And then I'm going to do my dimmers in splits. So I'm going to go 1 through 6. Store. And we're going to call this front dim. And we can go 7 through 12 for our back ones. And we're going to call it back dim. Now another trick that I could have done is if I've got, say, the front dimmer group and I want to get the other half of it, if I go 1 through 12, whoa, hello, 1 through 12, and I go minus and I click on one of my groups, it's going to give me the minus of whatever that group is. So it's going to give me the back one. Just a fast way of doing things if you've already gone through and done, say, an odd and even group manually. Now we've got groups, we can start having a bit of fun. So we're going to select our LED par cans from our group thing. And our lead pars, we're going to give them some intensity, so we can go at, or we can go at full, and it'll give us the same result. And then we're going to quickly jump over to color and have them selected, and we're going to go to red. Still very bright in there. All my fixtures are just incredibly dark. Yeah, we might need to bring those 250s down a bit. We'll cheat a bit. There we go. So now we've got our 250s selected, and they're in, well, sort of orange, isn't it? It's in orange. We can go to color presets, and we can click store, and it's going to give it a cover, which is red. And then we're going to select our 250s again. And we're going to try to get that color a bit better. So the Mac 250 doesn't have CMY. So we can go over to raw color 1, select this and we hopefully should be able to get a better red than that, but maybe that's as red as it thinks it gets. Are there any auto-create groups? Not at this point. There is no way of auto-creating groups. But the product is obviously very new, so I'd expect features like that to appear. Currently, because you're only really dealing with a certain amount of fixtures, doing it through fixtures and doing your fixture numbers correctly so you can quickly type them in means that you can do it fairly quickly without having to auto-create groups or palettes. So there we are, we've saved that in a colour. And we're going to go now back to picker with the two types we've selected, and we're going to go to green, and it's going to make those fixtures green, and we're going to store again in preset green. I'm going to call it green. And if you've just stored something, you can just start typing. If you're on a console, so we'll store our blue one, and we go label objects, and we go blue, but you want to come back and label it something later, you can always press the label key and click on the whatever palette or whatever you want to click on is. So there we go, we've got our three colours, red, green, blue, and we of course need a white. Store, we'll put the white over here, and it's already called white perfectly, we'll call it white anyway. Let's do some positions now. So now we're talking about just the Mac 250s, so we go groups, 250s. Or I could have just clicked along here. We give them intensity again, so we'll go at full this time. There we go. And we can do our positions using the pan tilt sliders. So we can position them sort of upstage, and then we can click the next key. Let's put them in a colour so we can do that first. So we'll go presets, colour, red, ooh, something I can see. Let's go green, and then we click highlight, and it'll put them all in highlight, which will remove any go. Did someone say Lee 106? Ah, yeah, fair enough. And we can manipulate them manually like this and position them all in the center, which is incredibly boring, but the way that you have to do it. You can also use an align, so if we clear that for a sec and we go with our 250s, they're in highlight, I'll take them out of highlight, put them in a color, green, then we go back to position, we tilt them, and then we click the align key, and you can either click the align key down here and shuffle through the options and they come up on the screen, or you can click it up here. Then all we have to do is pan and bring them all into the middle reasonably nicely. And we'll store that as a position preset. So when we've got the little preset tab up here, it changes dynamically on what we've got selected. If we didn't want to do this, we can pin a page. And then no matter what we do here, it's not going to change. But in this case, I want to keep it dynamic. Being able to pin a page is fantastic if you've got, let's say, an external monitor, or you want to pin a page to one of the dynamic wing screens or something, so that when we know that position is always going to be in one spot and we can always quickly grab it if we need to. But in this case, just the position pool, keeping it dynamic is fine for me right now. In hindsight, I could speed up this process by using the 3 wings and scaling it out very quickly. So we'll call this upstage center, call it. And then we can go and repeat the process and do that. If you're dealing in just Visualizer World and you're using .2 3D, we can do a nice little trick with positions. There's a button up here that says follow, and it'll give us a nice little red ball, and we can make the fixtures follow those little red balls, so we can have there, and because the system talks back, we can then go DSC and then shift it to here, or although no, that is the fastest path. And then we're going to call this DS stage right, and then DS stage left, like so, and then we can do the same and repeat the process and do a lot of other magical positions if we so choose to. Follow is lovely if you're just working in a 3D world. So, now we've done that, we can start programming things. So, once again, if you are a MA2 or an MA1 person, your first thing you'll notice with these buttons is they run right to left, not left to right. So everything sort of starts in the middle. So your first executor fader is here, not here. So we'll program some stuff. So what we'll do is we'll bring up our LEDs, go to color, we'll put them in green, we'll give them some intensity. We'll put them in blue. We'll go with a little bit of backlight. So we'll go groups and we'll go backlight and we'll grab our fake wheel. If it's going to let us, no. We'll go add and we'll go like at 25%. And then we'll grab our 250s, go presets, go position, and go downstage center, give them some intensity, and this is where it's handy to have your nice little fixture window, because right here I can go, I want this one and this one in blue, and I've just used hard values, which is wrong. Blue. There we go, much better. And then we'll store this as a scene. So when we go, hello, we'll go store and we'll store it to the first one. Now, on the net consoles, on the .NET consoles, on the .2 consoles, the faders are down the bottom and you've got two sets of executor buttons across the top. So when you're dealing with the desk, the first thing, without a doubt, an MA2 or MA1 person will do is store something to 201, because it's the top button and it's the one I always go to when I'm programming. It took me about an hour and a half to work out that that's where you've got to store it. So we'll clear our programmer and we'll bring it up. And we'll do that again now that the lights are actually going to be in position. So we've got that, and then the next cue, hypothetically, we grab all our 250s and now we want them in white. So we can go, let's pin a page here, let's not screw around. So we'll go upstage and we'll go color. And we want them in, I'll go back that way and go presets, and we want color and we will want them in white, and then we'll grab our fixtures, groups, sorry, lead par, presets, white. That's a really nice white, and I don't think an RGB park can do that. And we go store and we click here. And it's going to prompt us with a couple of options. Do we want to merge it? Do we want to remove it, overwrite it, or create a second queue? Now on MA2, these are the options you get as well, with a couple of other more advanced ones. But with the .2, it will also explain what all of these do. So merge activates when touched parameters, activates touched parameters, or anything you've left in your programmer. Remove removes the active touched values from the first queue. Overwrite will overwrite the entire queue with what you've got currently. And create second queue will create a second queue. So we want to create a second queue. Why are the faders running right to left? I believe it's so that when you add on fader pages and stuff, you've got the logical progression of faders. Not entirely sure. But you get used to it. If you get used to left to right, you'll get used to right to left. The Japanese and Chinese market will absolutely love it. And then we'll play back those queues. So there's Q1, and there's Q2. Q1, Q2. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to add some front light. So we'll add some front light. So we'll add some front light, and in this queue I also want our 250s at 0. And we go store, and we click the button. It's now also prompting us to label this executor. Let's label it Busk1. Just because we can. That didn't work at all. Oh no, it named the queue. There we go. And we can flick through and we can see our 3 queues. So, this queue, oh hello. This queue, we also lost the intensity of our 250s. In the next queue, I would like them to be downstage right. And on. And we're going to store that. Come across the core fader, store it. And now, when we go through it, of course, they do that quite uglily. Ugly-wise. So, we want to pull up our queue list. So, pulling up the queue list. If you're an MA guy, you'll be clicking, and you'll know do what it wants. So, there's a lovely little button over here. Let's come to the queue before Busk. We click on the little eye, and we click on that little eye, and we click on the queue stack, and it brings up that queue stack. And it's going to have a bunch of lovely options for us. But what we're looking for is we're looking for the little toolbox icon. And when we click on that, and we go move in black, we go to our next queue. It still doesn't. What have I done wrong? Alright, there we go. And there it is. Haha! Now it moves in black. Behold the magic. And here we can also set some fade times. So we can set everything to do it over 2 seconds. And then we click through our queue stack. And it fades really nicely with that color wheel. Does the select button bring it to the main fader? No. If we click select, it does not. It only selects the fixtures. So, programming to your main fader is now entirely different and new and lovely and awesome. So we'll select our 250s, put them on, come over to F-Wing 1, put them in upstage. If I just go store, please, it puts it on the main queue stack. And we'll call another queue in, we'll bring in the gobo. Gobos are all hidden here. We'll put them in fat bar, and go store and click please. And it's going to ask what do we want to do with it. When we click create second queue, and it puts it into our main queue stack. Like so. And we can also crossfade. And that's how to put things on your main queue stack. Now, let's play with some effects. So we'll remove the main queue stack one. Let's put some effects in. So we'll go to the end of our busk thingy. Let's grab the eye, just so we can see. So after this queue, we want to do effects. So to call up effects, you can set a different one for color fade. When we go over here, we can see here there's one that's called color fade. So if we make this 0 and we click through them, it does it really quickly. So this is really nice. This is one thing that's been simplified. You can now do position fade, position delay, gobo delay, color fade, etc. And you've got a lot of options as well. You can even do shapers and video. It's quite nice, to be honest. I'm going to set this back to Q3 because it's annoying me. So we're going to come into Q4, which we're in. Now we want to do effects. So if we click on effect, it's going to give us effects for gobos. If we click on position and then we click effect, it's going to give us some preset ones. So if we want circle with fixture selected, of course, it always helps, I've found. They'll do a circle. And we'll go with wing 1. And we'll go presets, and we'll go downstage shadow just so it's centered. And now we can see that they're doing a lovely circle. Now we've got the same things that we always had. We've got size, speed, so we can make it faster. Let's make it 120 BPM. And the 250s really don't like that at all. Or we can go half. Or we can go half again. We can make it bigger. But effects is one thing that's currently just preset. You can't store your own effects yet, which is fine for your basic programmers, because you can sort of modify the effect. You can create a low and high value if you need to. You can change direction, sync it, align it, and a bunch of other stuff, but your effects are slightly limited. But one good thing is, when we store this to a fader, if we just want to stomp it, we can go mute effect. Well, stomp, really, not mute effect. But we can go stomp, store, next queue, done. So when we go through it, we've got our effect, and we stomp it, and it goes back. Oh, I didn't actually press record, did I? So I've got our effect, they're doing stuff, they come over here, and then in this one we want it to stomp the effect, so we go stomp, and then we click update. And now it's updated. So effects are now also spaced out a bit more, so you don't have all the effects shoved together. You've got position effects, which we were playing with before, gobo effects, color effects, beam effects, focus effects, and control effects, which there are none. Obviously, because why would you ever want to lamp strike something. Speaking of lamp strike, we're going all over the shop today. When we click in control, everything's really simple. So it's going to give us 3 options. There's no wheel to go through. If we need to dive in, we can pull up the raw faders always. But you click lamp on, and it says seconds left. And it holds that value for the lamp on for the length it needs to for that fixture, and it lamps it on. If you select an entire rig of moving lights, the control page will still be the same. It'll have a big lamp on, a big lamp off, and a big reset button. Very simple and very easy to deal with. We'll dive into macros. There's a preset bunch of macros. Macros are sort of a really MA2 sort of thing. Your average user of a .2 console is probably not going to use many macros other than your normal default ones, which they've put in surprisingly. The ones that you'd actually use are the ones they've put in. So they've put in things like, if we go macro, you've got your align buttons, you can do your even odd. So if we click on the even IDs and we... Oh, I unpinned that, didn't I? That was silly of me. We can do our even ones, and we can go macro, and we can go odd ID, and we can do those. We've got shuffle selection, which is great for effects, your oops menu, and you can go back and do what you've done, quick save the show file, and the normal ones if program, if output, etc. So for corporate venues, stuff like if output is incredibly handy. You can also do obviously your knockout selection, which is good for programming, but they're still there. Things are a lot easier. Now, there's a big, lovely big magic button here, which does nothing. They're yet to enable the magic. So some would say that the .2 lacks any magic at this point, which is rather disappointing, because I would really like some magic in my shows. My shows like magic. So, with the 250s, we've also got, obviously, our nice little wheel, or I think they're called nipple buttons, which now enables you to have, obviously, your encoders in slow. So you can do your precise precision movements a lot easier. And you can also use your scroll wheel for your mouse, which is what I'm using right now. And you can probably do it with a pen as well, yes. Using the wheel's actually nice. I really like these faders compared to using the fake little wheels that the MA2 has. The fader is exactly tactile enough to do exactly what I want. So on PC programming, I'd honestly really like to see this actually come onto MA2. The .2's got its own little help menu, which is quite good. It's got a lot of information, hints about operating, label command. If you've got a USB drive attached and you click Save Show, by default it saves to both locations, which is really nice for those of us who forget to save to the USB drive. So we've run through the basics. There's lots of interesting little tricks to it. As it's running on MA2, there are a couple of obviously MA2-ish sort of things in the background. Because the software is, in a sense, MA2. Like, you look at it and it looks very familiar. Things out of the command line. We start when we start putting in large things into the command line, we start really feeling like MA2, and I think for most people who are all-rounders, you're really not going to end up doing too much of that. You want stuff to be incredibly simple. So I want to be able to go, I want the LED paths, I want to be able to, for some reason, strobe them. So I want to put them on 101, and I want to label that by clicking label and clicking on the item I want and going this thing, and I want it to be LED flash, and when I click on that button it's a toggle. But if I want to fix that, I can click on it and it brings me up to this executives of page 1, and I click the little gear that I'm familiar with, the way I do everything else on this desk, and I change this from a toggle to a flash, and then it becomes a flash button. And that's really simple. And we can do the same thing with the buttons on this. We can change it from a flash button to a select button, which selects the fixtures, which is really nice. Is there a way of reordering fixture selection? Yes, we've got the lovely little shuffle selection. So if we then run, let's say, a dimmer effect, let's go hard dimmer, dun 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 dun. Oh well, we'll do it before shuffling it first. So it goes like that. We've got a button already here called shuffle selection, so it's going to make that a bit more random. And then we can also go to color, or let's go, yeah, color's one that you're going to be able to see, and we go effect, we go 2 color hard, it's going to go through our 2 colors, like so. So you can reorder fixture selection. You're not bound to your numbers. You can also, after saying don't use, a long command line, you can go and do it in your selection order like this. And it's going to go through and do it in the order I selected. So you can do it like that as well. So we're entering into the tail end of it. I think we'll start taking questions, and that'll give us a fair amount of time to obviously get fairly in depth into your questions. So shoot your questions my way, and I will drink this lovely bottle of water that I've got sitting on my desk because my throat is sore. I really like it, to be honest. You've got to remember that it's not designed for MA2 users. It's designed for people who have never used a console like this before. And if you've never used an MA2 and you come across this, it sort of blows you away because you go, wow, it's really simple. We had one of the consoles in the office yesterday when we were playing around with it. And I had a couple of programmers come in, play with it. They're like, we really like the form factor. Like, it's a really nice thing. Once you've seen it, the first question you'll be asking is, where's my MA2 version? Because it's such a nice console, form factor wise and programming wise, and even screen size. But they said, there's features missing and stuff, but you're always going to have features missing when you start aiming at a lower range. I think you really start with the MA2 software and you go, well, what features don't they need? So one, straight off the bat, there's no pixel mapping. If you're pixel mapping, you might need a proper console, and these days most 2-pixel map will end up using a media server anyway. And while there's no CITP in this, the library is firstly the library out of an MA2, so we can go PRG inbox and we can patch an inbox, or we can patch a VPU as well, and we can control it like that. So they haven't limited you like that, and of course you can take any MA2 fixture file and bring it into this. You can also take a .2 show file and bring it onto an MA2 console. You can't go the other way though. But you still have options. I reckon theatres are going to love this, like really small regional theatres are going to love it. Small venues, such small corporate venues, are absolutely going to eat these things up. They're fantastic. And they're a really fantastic gateway to MA2 as well. So anything that you learn on here, despite being slightly different when you come onto an proper MA2, I don't mean proper MA2, I mean a full bore console like an MA2, is going to be beneficial to you. You know, you're not being set backwards. It's not like learning hog and then being, you know, thrown into the deep end. So do we have any questions at all? Because I've allocated 30 minutes to questions. I'll scroll through the chat and we'll see what we've got here. Let's quickly check. Yeah, lovely. So I'm going to keep talking. If no one has any questions, yes, is there time code? Fantastic. I couldn't find that. Thank you. Thank you very much, Hippie. Should just pay you to be a moderator. So yes, there is time code. There's time code. There you can take MIDI or SMPTE time code. There's MIDI on the back of the console. There's SMPTE on the back of the console. And it's pretty much the same way that it was on or in MA2s. You can do all your triggering off SMPTE or MIDI. Obviously, it's a bit more cut back. I mean, there's no real learn function. Like the MA2, you can't run an internal time code where you sort of click through and you've got a nice time code view. But you can obviously still use time code to a degree. So that's nice. I really like the position, fade, delay and all that kind of stuff. If I had the option of an MA2 and a .2, well that's not really a realistic comparison. I'd obviously pick the MA2 being an MA2 programmer, but it's like really asking hog versus MA. You're going to go for the one that you much prefer to use. I would prefer an MA2. I'd be faster on an MA2, but you know, give it 6 months, there'll be some .2 guys that are incredibly competent with their consoles. Your 60 fixture rig, if I had the two consoles sitting next to each other, I'd take an MA2, but that's just because what I'm comfortable with. But if I did have junior operators who didn't know the console and I couldn't really set up like a busk setup for them, I would be tempted to take the .2 along. But it all depends on time. You know, we're not taking into account fixture type as well. I mean, part fixtures in this is nice as well. It does it exactly the same way that that MA2 does it, where you've got your point fixtures. So if you've got, let's say, a Robin 600, you've got your 4 different segments, the 601.1, 602.2, so on. So it'd work for that, but I obviously would still go for an MA2 because this magical budget that we've got here allows both consoles. Also, if we go on the command line, the command wing route, I can get significantly more faders for less money than I can if I start bulking up on command wings or consoles. Alright, so let's do the red ball thing again. So, we selected fixtures, so let's select our 250s, and I'm going to go into just .3 for the moment. Sorry, .2 3D, and up here is a little icon which looks like a bullseye, which gives us the red ball, and we can drag the red ball around and have a red ball. It's not the best, is it? It's not. I wouldn't put it this way. You wouldn't want to do it live, would you? It's okay if you go slowly. I think I was confusing it because I was making it go like high. That's the red ball. And to get out of the red ball, we just click back here. Another option you've got is if you don't like when I select fixtures or when you select fixtures how they come up highlighted, you can go to Tools. Ha! Doesn't show up. Well, if you go to Tools, there's a button that says Sync Selection, and if you disable that, then no matter what you select in the program, it's not going to be synced. But it's quite nice to have sync selection. Does the red ball? Yeah, the red ball actually comes up on your screen, lovely. Some things in the capture software that I don't like. Yes, like a laser pointer. Yes. I have a feeling the same thing as MA2. I've just never used it. I've always seen the follow function and been like, I don't know what I would use that for. Remote triggers. Yeah, good question. So, remote inputs. We've got the standard setup. We've got analog, MIDI, and DMX. Analog's the same DB25 connector on the back, so any of the little hippie, any of the little analog controllers that our little documentation that Mad Hippie created will work for them. And it's exactly the same as it was on MA2. We want it to be an executor, we want it to be that, and we just select the analog type. Like so. Yeah, there we go. So you select it like that. So we can make it the analog type, and we can go command, or we can make it executor. And it can be a button, fader. We'll have a look at MIDI as well. Command. So the one thing that's missing is, ooh, hello. You can't merge from the physical DMX. So that is one thing that's missing. So you select type, doesn't have programmer anymore. But once again, this is something... Oh, well that's utter stupidity, isn't it? Congratulations, Alex. So, let's go through all of that again, because I didn't bring up the right view. Good on me. Look at how professional we are at console training. So if we click Setup, and we go Remote Inputs, we've got our three different input types. So we've got analog, MIDI, DMX. And we can select the type, so we can go executor, we want it to be a button or a fader. MIDI, do the same thing, DMX, executor 1, button or fader. And we don't have, interesting. You don't have the option of making it a different fader page. That's interesting. Doesn't have a clearable fade time. This is why it's always good to have the chat open. I've done this before and they've gone, yeah, we can't see anything, you're in the wrong view. I do have a preview of what I'm live streaming, but I rarely look at it. Yes, that was what I was saying. There's no merge. That's all your options for DMX. But the interesting one is the lack of being able to set a fader page. So I'm wondering if you fire DMX to it and you're up a fader page, whether it'd still trigger from 1 or... Ah, that's interesting. So, when I shift to another page, it doesn't give me back that fader. It says 1 is fixed from fader from page 1. So I can still control that, which is nice. So you know what you've got. Which means if you've loaded up all your faders, there's no value in going to another page. Interesting. In terms of MA2, if you're bashing around in things in the background of the programmer, then you set your fade time. So programmer time. Programmer time can be done. And by doing that, I was about to say I've got no clue how to do that, but I just worked it out. So if we click on an empty fader, actually if we go, how do I do that? If we go virtual playback, how did I do that? I clicked in the empty spot. So if we go empty spot, and we bring up our executors of page 1 and we click in that empty spot, it's going, this executor is empty. What would you like to do? We would like to program a program time master. And then anything I do, in theory, $250s, the maximum you can make it, you must be able to change it in 10 seconds. So if I go like this, it's going to do it over 10 seconds. Or if I bring this down, it's going to do whatever, 4 seconds. If we bring up the little gear, we should be able to program time on and off. Interesting. So there's no way of doubling it. So the maximum program time you can now have is 10 seconds in this version so far. That might be something they change. No promises. I should say that we are a third-party organisation. We've got no attachment to MA. We're just 3 people with way too much free time, or not enough free time that we still feel with ridiculous things like grandMA. So when we come home from work, we do more work. I think there's something wrong here. One of us has a really, a family and everything, and he's one of the most active ones on it. I don't know. Insanity. But everyone loves these commitments to the community. Oh, what have I just created? That's also something. So when you go to delete something, and it's up, it'll tell you, well, don't do that, man. It's going to change the stage output. You know, this is going to plunge your room into darkness. Program time is fantastic. I highly advise it. Group. Okay, so group, you can also do group masters. Okay, but it's a bit different. So previously, you'd create a group, and that'd be your group master, essentially. You create a group, and then you'd assign that group master, and it gave you a group. With this, by the looks of it, you select your type of fixtures, and then click on your empty fader. I'm just guessing here, and we go group. Yep, there we go. and it creates a group master for those selected fixtures. That's kind of cool. That's kind of a really simple way of doing it, rather than having to deal with the assign menu, which is what MA2 has. And you can actually do a rate master as well, which is kind of cool. I kind of like it. I really like it. Yeah, I really like it. So once again we've arrived at a point. Does anyone have any questions? I'll drink more water in the meantime. I think depending on the way they package it, so depending on whether the dealers go, well, if you buy an X amount of lights, you get this desk. I reckon they'll definitely sell really well. You'll see them in a lot of venues, I have no doubt. Because they're just a really nice console. Can you store default positions? No. Short answer to that one is no. That is something that, as far as I know, you can't do. So you can't have a position preset as the default anymore. So no. You can also, of course, if you're coming into a new venue, just update all your position presets. But there's no way of altering the default position. So if it's sitting in its programmer, if it's sitting with nothing being sent to it, instead of sitting in 50-50, which is down, you want it set to like 45 degrees or something so it doesn't clip a bit of set. As far as I know, that hasn't been included at this point, but we'll see whether it's included. I should start using your names. Some of you have got names in the chat. I should start using them. Guest number. So we've roughly got about 20 more minutes left in the prescribed time. I'm happy to go over if there's enough questions or if there's enough stuff. What network protocols can it output? It can output ACN and ArtNet. Is there an iPad app for it yet? No, not at this point. There's no way of even having separate users. Can you change the language? Yes. Can I do Swedish? No. You can also select the way, so your external monitor, you can hook it up to an ELO touch monitor, and you can use that monitor as you want, and you can also pick what you want things to be, which is nice. So I can go a quad of 4 little tiles, and my first tile I can make fixtures, first fixtures, second groups, third presets, and I can lock that as well. Or I can make it a 1 versus 2 if I want. You can do a lot of things with your external screen, and you can hook it up to like an ELO touch screen, or you can just use a default screen. There's a DVI point on the back. Does it have fixture cloner morphing features? I can change the type of the fixtures, but I can't clone fixtures. So that capacity to clone out fixtures isn't available. And no, there's no cloning macros. Those are the macros that you see up there, and I'll leave them up for a couple of seconds. You've got to remember it's designed for small venues, an emphasis on small venues. It'd be nice for small tours, but there's obviously going to be a bit of give and take when you move to a new venue and you've got new lights if you're touring the desk. Yeah, I can't say whether they'll include cloning. That's up to the Germans, obviously. They may, but then you start adding cloning, and now you want, macros and effects, and then, you're starting to move towards an MA2. And I think there's going to become a point where they go, oh, well, if you want these features, we've got a product that does that. So, do we have any more questions? Just keep the questions coming. How to set default home positions for single fixtures. Mate, oh, no, you can't do it. No, you can't store defaults. You can probably... if you wanted to modify fixtures, so that's the other thing. If you wanted to modify fixtures, you've got to do it through their fixture builder. By the looks of it, at this point, you can't do it directly off the console. But that may be something. I imagine that'll change because you need to be able to build fixtures off the console. If you're in a new venue and they've given you a Chinese parkan which goes green, red, blue, you've got to have a capacity to do that. But currently the only way of doing it is with their little fixture builder application, which runs on Mac and Windows. And it's quite nice. I went through a bit of that in the last live stream. I can probably go through that as well on this one if you're interested. I'll just have to create a little page to do that. Oh, hello. Lost my fixture builder application. Oh, where are we here? So here we've got the fixture builder application. And I see that question about does it break down values? It does, and I will go through that. But we'll quickly run through the fixture builder application. So we're going to call this one going to call it a hippie spot or a hip spot. It's going to be mode 5. It's going to have a 45-degree beam because it's insanity. It's going to be the brightest thing you've ever seen in your life. It's going to be manufactured by Console Training. And our short manufacturer name is CT. And our first channel is going to be a dimmer, and that's the start address. So we go dimmer, and it's not going to have a fine one. If it did, we put it in here, so we can go 2. And we'll also put in a highlight value, so we go save and add. And then the next thing it's going to have is pan. And it's going to ask the physical range of the pan is 540. Then we're going to go with tilt. And the next thing it's got is shutter, and it needs to be at 100% for highlight mode. Then it's going to have also a zoom. And then we're going to do color. So we can just go cyan, magenta, and yellow. And then we can go back to our shutter channel, and we can also add in all the functions. So we can have strobe, let's go 50 or 60 hertz, from 50 to 59 to 75. Save and add, and we can see that it adds that in. I probably should have named that though. Oh yeah, I did, 60 hertz, there you go. And then we can just export that out. We can export to folder or a USB drive. So we'll jump back to our combined view for a sec, and I'll close that lovely little window, and I'll call up our software. And that editor also works with MA2. So the question was, oh hello, that is all decided to restart. Oh no, there we go, that's lovely. Anyway, so if we go 250 and we go beam, we can do your raw shutter effect. So you can go the effect wheel. It breaks it down to the sliders, but you've obviously also got, oh well, strobe's not a good example, is it? Let's go to color, and if we go to raw color 1, we can go with our normal picker and just go through all the colors. Will there be any dongle or node for the net output without any other hardware? No. So, as far as I know, there are no plans to release that. The cheapest option you can get in the .2 range is a .2 node, which gives you 2 universes of output, and you can do that over ArtNet as well if you choose to do so. So, question and also guessed 383's answer. Oh no, sorry, 572. Yeah, time-coded shows, if you're doing stuff where you're using the learn function, an MA2 would be preferable for that. But, you know, if we think about it, that is sort of an advanced feature. I mean, you're not really going to be doing massive timecode shows and expecting the world out of an ETC Ion disk, are you, really? Because you'll discover that the ETC Ions and a wing are about the same price as the .2 range, depending on where you are in the world. Obviously, pricing depends on where you are, and also how good you know your distributor, and also what you're buying at the time. But from the discussions I've had, it's really reasonably priced for what it is. Do we have any more questions? Any more questions? Is there a learn button? Yes. There is an if macro, if active, if output, if programmer. And there is, there is a learn button. So if we go into our fader options and we go here, we can go for our busk one, we can have a learn button. And then if we have our stack set to time, and we run it. Oops. We can do that quite easily, and we can step it through and we can make it go faster. So there is that button. There is a learn button, but there is no, well, there is an if button, but it's not as described. Oh no, time's right. And you've still got your sound triggering as well. We've got time for one more question. So, does anyone have any questions? Let's have a look at their lips. There is a rate fader. Oops. Helps if I'm not apocalyptically stupid. You can have a rate to control the speed of, I think, all your playbacks. So if we had something actually playing back, like that, so you can have a rate fader. Ah, if I hadn't set that to there you go, there's a rate fader. I think that's pretty much it. I think we might call it there. Thank you all for coming along. It's been a pleasure diving in deeper with the .2 console. So a recording of this will go up pretty much shortly after today. If you need any show files or anything, don't be afraid to email us, of course. Our website is consoletraining.com. And you can contact us via there. Our YouTube channel is something you should subscribe to because we're starting to do a lot more live streams, and we're starting to put a lot more of the live stream stuff up before the actual event. And if you subscribe, it'll give you a little reminder and say, hey, this event's coming up. Of course, our YouTube page, I've done our YouTube page. I mean, our Facebook page is also a good one. If you're on Facebook, like us. We don't put up anything too ridiculously spammy or anything, but it's also another good way of keeping track. So thank you all for coming. My name is Alex Hughes, and we've been